sum up, tell the people who Mr. Chakraborty is. CII, CEO, Innovative Financial Advisors, Fiinovation, social entrepreneur. An ex-aviator, Mr. Chakraborty has worked extensively in strategizing and implementing corporate social responsibility and sustainability programs across India. His thorough understanding of the subject has allowed him to partner with various institutions which include national and multinational corporations, non-government organizations and multilateral agencies, amongst others. Mr. Chakraborty.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'll accept it with absolute humility and honor. Mr. Somani, Mr. Minin Kamble and Mr. Karthik Bharat, a very good morning. To all the august audience here, a very warm good morning to all of you. We were actually running a bit of short of time when we got a call to be engaged in this conference. But when I looked at the agenda saying that it is on inclusive growth and inclusive growth becoming a weapon to bridge the gap, usually what happens is we are consulting organizations and we work with multinational corporations who have a different outlook. But we also work at the grassroots for implementation of certain social entrepreneurial projects, which tells us that the reality is in complete dichotomy to what we think in these conference rooms. But nevertheless, discussions like these lead to a certain amount of change down under, and I think that is how progress happens. When you look at the newspapers today, because that's something that we do very early in the morning, when you look at the newspapers today, you see the first thing is the finance heads, the finance ministry, the finance ministry officials, or the industry giants talking about the GDP growth. I think a couple of days back, PwC projected a growth of 6.4 this year, becoming a $3 trillion country of net worth. It also gives us an alarm. We are perennially very positive in our nature, so I would say it's an opportunity, it's a challenge when we see that kind of a growth phenomenon. And on one side, we realize that 40% of this country still goes hungry every single day. It gives me immense sense of defeat and a calculation of the uphill task when I realize, or we realize as an institution, that as we are speaking today, the energy requirement of the world is doubling up and the resources for that energy are getting halved. So, what kind of growth are we talking about? Means, what is this 6%, 5%, 4%, and how much population are we actually catering to this country? In a country where we are talking about reaching 6.5 and 7% GDP, 40% of our own country members are going hungry every single day. Now, I'm a layman. I'm a very ab initio student in front of you all. I'm a very early stage student in this sector, and I would want to be that way for the rest of my life. One thing that I don't understand is why doesn't the industry try to simplify things? Let's take a family. We have, as a traditional base, Indians have been very family oriented. So let's see at a family level how we operate. Imagine out of 10 people in your family, 4 people go hungry every single day, and you claim that you're rich and you're prosperous. Does that really hold any meaning? But because it's a country and we do not come interface with these individuals every single day, it really doesn't matter. So physical interface causes a difference in understanding what is actually inclusive growth. So I was going through the agendas, and I think one of the agendas in one of the sessions today is, for example, employability and employable. So we are making more and more employability opportunities coming in, but our generation, over the last 6 months or 1 year, it has been debated that our skilled generation, we take pride in saying that we are one of the most young nations in the world, but we are also at the same time unemployable. We have the highest youth which is unemployable in certain industries in this country. So we have to realize that what kind of a growth are we looking at? What is the dichotomy in between? When businesses and industry looks at growth, I think it is an imperative, not for industry, but for even the political establishment, to understand what is inclusive growth. If your growth is not inclusive, it will not be sustainable. If it is not sustainable, and if you do not include all the sections of the society, chances are that you will be soon out of the office for political achievements and with the demerits, or the growth will happen on a certain paradigm which you have never imagined, and that will be very catastrophic for the whole society at large. There are a lot of speakers, and there are a lot of eminent speakers, great people who have worked in this sector will talk to you throughout the day. My submission is very simple. My submission is, when we look at technicalities, when we talk about inclusion in growth, how much of this can go out of this room and get out of being a slogan rather than a policy? The greatest dysfunctional system that we see in place today is because we all talk of inclusion. Everyone will talk of inclusion. I don't find a single person who says no, growth has to be exclusive to certain section of the society. So everyone will talk inclusion. Everyone will try to be on the right side of the books for everyone. But when it comes to policy implementation, and I will not mince my words, the industry and the government actually are not laying their foundations on the right strength. For example, you have a tax net worth in India of about 25%. Means you're trying to increase your tax base and make it as much as possible. I'm not talking about the leakages, I'm talking about the total taxable population. Now, financial inclusion, the way it has been designed in India, and how are we going about it? So what is the industry doing? Certain financial sector companies, what are they doing about financial inclusion? You know, a lot of these policy documents, because I sit on a lot of boards of the companies, they talk about a lot of policies. But when you talk about financial inclusion, I can give it to you in writing, it never appears in the first 20 pages of any board resolution. It comes at the last. So what happens is, you look at inclusion, now this is very funny. You talk about inclusion, but when you look at inclusion at a policy level, you take it at the 50th page of your board. So by the time you reach to that page, you've already framed up your implementation process and policy. And this is specific to the government and the industry that I'm speaking. So what happens during the process, you do not think about inclusivity. But at the end of the process, you think that you will take care of the inclusivity. So what my request to the August gathering and to the members who will be coming is, let us discuss some implementable policies on the ground. I think you people have worked very hard to be where you are today. It is a responsibility on our heads to take it forward and take it right down to the pyramid. We have certain great minds who have actually come out right from the bottom to the top. You have traveled the journey. Now it's time when you actually allow policy to be transformed right at day one to make the policies inclusive. Times immemorial, we have realized that revolutions have happened because of non-inclusive policies of industry or the government. If the governance structure does not support inclusivity, if this gap which exists, you see, when you and I are talking today in the morning, if you look at the policies, you will find that the gap is widening. It is not getting narrower. There is certainly certain dysfunctionalities which exist, and certainly we are not talking the right sense. This is one of the major reasons why I felt I got a bit hitched to this conference, is because now finally, when we are looking beyond the dash for cash mechanism, we are looking beyond profits to prosperity, to economic overall prosperity. So one of the terms which comes is how do you calculate profit? So profit is a very important part of the growth, but I would ideally not believe that profit is growth. If that profit does not translate into economic prosperity into various sections of the society, because there are also multiple stakeholders in your business, which are your consumers, your employees, yourself, the promoters at large, I don't think the business will sustain itself for long. So if for your business to sustain, it is very important that you understand prosperity more than profit, and prosperity and growth can only come when your policies and your practices are inclusive in nature. So I would wish CII all the best for the day, and I would request the next speaker to please come up, and thank you all for bearing me for 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty. I think you really set the stage for a fruitful discussion, food for thought. You brought in points of where we start. We start at home. We start in our families. And we look at industry as a family, and therefore it's important, as what you've said, about implementing policies which will go down to the level and not just create profit. And your analogy of prosperity and profit indeed is something that we can discuss. As we say, there are 4 E's for the industry to follow.